Meep, 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 meep. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Where Are They Now, where we're continuing our series on monsters in film. I'm your host, Ichabod Brumbles, and tonight I'm joined by none other than possibly the most famous monster of all, Freddie Frankenstein. Thank you for being with us tonight, Freddie. Before we begin, I understand you have something you'd like to clear up.
Indeed, Ichabod. About my name. Now, if you're going to get snobby on me and call me pedantic, so be it. But if people kept referring to Spielberg as Jaws' director, or King Charles III as Queen Elizabeth II's son, they'd be constantly correcting you too. The name is Alfredo, but I go by Freddie. Not Fredo, not Elfie, not Frankenstein, and certainly not Frankenstein. That was a fun gag for a Mel Brooks film. But please, be respectful of me. This is reality. If you stop mislabeling me, I'll stop being pedantic.
Very good, Freddie. I know I certainly get my feathers ruffled whenever someone refers to me as Ichabod Crane, and I know this has been a shadow following you for decades, but isn't Alfredo an Italian name?
Yes, the doctor and Igor had takeout from their local pizza pasta joint the night I came to life. According to Igor's telling of my birthday story, the fettuccine Alfredo lingered pleasantly on their palates the entire time they were setting up the electrodes before the storm. It was the next thing on their minds after the experiment, so naturally it inspired my name.
Fascinating. Now on with our lightning round questions to break the ice. Favorite band?
The Moody Blues, particularly the album Days of Future Past, recorded with the London Festival Orchestra, conducted by Peter Knight. They have a particular thread of storytelling through a lot of their work that's typically only found on the Beatles albums, yet they don't risk being so cliché.
Excellent choice. One of the UK's best. Favorite dish?
Favorite of all time is Igor's veg lasagna, but I can't have that anymore since he never wrote the recipe down. So these days, a nice salad niçoise.
So continental. Favorite season?
Spring, when everything is full of life.
Beautiful. No allergies, then?
No, my sinuses don't function quite the same way, and I guess they have rather lazy histamine. The doctor couldn't get everything right.
And finally, favorite road trip?
Now see, most of my road trips occur when I'm being chased over hill and dale by angry villagers. But there was one time. My college roommate and I packed his Beetle with snacks, our swim trunks, his guitar, and a box full of 8-tracks, and made our way down to the Gulf Coast for spring break. We never made it to the coast, but we did meet a Cajun band that taught him the washboard and me the spoons. We bathed in streams, slept under the stars, and ate a lot of dry cereal.
Sounds like the kind of formative experience that no one should miss. So now, tell us more about yourself. I had no idea you lived in a dorm when you went to school, and I'm trying to picture what that little room was like. Why, your feet must have been hanging out the end of the bed.
Yes, they would have if the bed didn't collapse the first time I sat on it. I had a sleeping bag on some pillows in the corner. I enrolled in college to avoid the Vietnam draft in the 60s. Normally a monster wouldn't have the resources to pay tuition, but Igor left me a sizable inheritance. It worked. I avoided being shipped off to really be the killing machine everyone assumed I was. I spent a few years reading the greats and not-so-greats, and I was able to follow my passion to be a literary critic, which, by the time I graduated and got on the scene in the early 70s, I had entire realms of avant-garde literature to chip away at. Fantasy and sci-fi especially took off in that era. What really seemed to work in my favor, ironically, was my reputation that preceded me. Many authors I critiqued listened to my suggestions, and several of them reached out to be my collaborators on future works. Since I was already a famous underdog who happens to be admired by authors thanks to Mary Shelley Wollstonecraft, whom I refused to critique due to conflict of interest. They didn't fear my judgments, and they knew I'd be approachable. This led to several collaborations. Joyce Carol Oates, Mercedes Lackey, Tom Robbins, Jonathan Franzen, and Dave Eggers consulted me on getting McSweeney's up and running. I helped craft many emerging authors who reached the level of bestseller. A brief side note, collaboration is highly underrated. Everything improves when we take our best bits and merge them with the best pieces of others to create an improvement.
Well, that can be taken a number of ways. You truly are a master of words. Now, Igor, he seems to have been a particular influence on you. Can you speak a bit about your laboratory years?
Of course, Igor was every bit a mother to me. He was so caring and generous. At times, he'd take better care of me than of the doctor, and he was always sure to slip me a little treat, a chocolate, a cookie, ants on a log.
Ants on a log? Are you an insectivore?
No, it's a popular kid's snack of cheese spread on a stick of celery with little raisins on top. Anyway, he was the best person, and such a sense of humor. He made Uncle Fester seem like Maggie Thatcher. And, well, this is a little hard to speak of without getting emotional. They meant a lot to me, and I really don't want to out anyone, but it's been long enough, I guess. What most people don't realize is Igor was also an experiment of the doctor's, but gone wrong. His hunchback, it was actually a mistakenly placed breast. The doctor's first experiment with reanimation was to create more of a personal assistant, if you know what I mean. But he was young and inexperienced, and he ended up with Igor, who really was just the loveliest person you'd ever know. He played the role of mother better than anyone could have, and though there was nothing physical between him and the doctor, not that they let me know anyway, they really did love each other and support one another. It was a loving home I came from. That's why, the first time I left that lab, I truly just wanted to be friends with everyone. After that fiasco, there were 3 years of being locked up in the lab before they created my ex-wife for me. The years that followed weren't bad, mind you, but Elizabeth was too strong of mind to be tied down to us, too independent. And when you're created to be someone's companion, but you're strong-willed, it makes for a lot of conflict and a lot of unhappy days. We tried separation at first, and it went well, but we mutually decided a formal divorce was necessary to help us both move on to better times. It was shortly after she moved to the States to be an aspiring actress that the accident happened. A steam pipe in the lab was overpressured due to a sticky valve, and it exploded right behind Igor while he was polishing dials and switches. He died instantly. After the funeral, the doctor sank into a deep depression. He didn't want to do anything. No appetite, no inspiration. I mean, it's what happens to most people when they lose their significant other. His terrible sister had him committed to a sanatorium, and I had no legal rights to influence decisions made on his behalf, as I wasn't recognized as a legitimate citizen of anything, let alone a legally recognized member of his family. I was the only visitor he ever had there, but I went twice every week. He sort of withered away and passed away a few months later. That was when I moved to the States, to be closer to Elizabeth. We agreed we should be in the same city at least, so I went to L.A. We had dinner together every night at a little diner that was halfway between our homes. She wanted glamour and lived in a little apartment in the hills, while I lived in Crenshaw. I got the respect I gave in that part of town. Then came college, then the career. Once Elizabeth became established in the studio set and found her partner Mark, I moved up to a small community in Washington State in the 90s, where I've been since. I write every morning on my sun porch and read every afternoon by the fireplace. And a long line of felines have been keeping me company and providing the world with some great cat memes. Most recently, Cuddles the black and white tabby.
How cozy! A far cry from the way you've been depicted in film. And we'll be interviewing Elizabeth later on for this series. Tell me, do you still keep in touch?
Every week we call one another to catch up. She tells me she's next in line for a star on the Walk of Fame, so I'll be traveling down for that. I'll probably have a nice dinner with her and her family to celebrate, and we have a fun tradition of walking in zombie fashion around the La Brea tar pits and harmlessly freak people out. It's L.A., so a lot of people go unfazed, but it's sure fun when someone shrieks and we explain to them it's all just a game.
Oh, so good to hear you're still friends. Now I understand you've chosen to read one of the greats for us tonight?
Yes, I've selected one everyone knows, Poe's The Raven, and I recorded it in my scariest voice.
Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this, and nothing more." Distinctly I remember it wasn't the bleak of December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my book surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token. and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, Lenore. This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, Lenore. Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning. Soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. Surely, said I, surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more. Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my said fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, Other friends have flown before, on the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, Nevermore. Startled by the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken. Doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, got from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then, upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat, engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff, this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore. Desolate, yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, I said, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul, with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aidenn it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.
Bone-chilling, nevermore indeed. Let's hope I again come that close to wearing my shorts nevermore. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Freddie. It really was a delight. I look forward to reading more of your columns in the future as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ichabod. I've had a great time here. Love your program.
Thank you. Well, folks, that's all the time we have for tonight. Until next time, on Where Are They Now? I'm Ichabod Brumbles. Good night. Meep, 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 meep.